Ladies and gentlemen, happiness is not something you stumble upon accidentally or something someone else hands to you when they decide you've earned it. It's not a reward from the world for being good enough, and it's not a gift that comes wrapped up in a relationship, a job, or a bank balance. Happiness is an inside job. It's a state you create, nurture, and protect from within. The harsh reality is that most people hand over control of their emotional state without even realizing it. They live like passengers in their own lives, waiting for someone to say the right words, treat them the right way, or give them permission to feel good about themselves. The problem with this is simple. The moment you let someone else control your happiness, you've given them the keys to your emotional well-being, and they can take it away at any time. That's not power, that's dependency. You have to see happiness not as an outcome, but as a discipline. Just like you train your body in the gym, you train your mind to find joy, peace, and fulfillment regardless of external conditions. If you wait for everything to be perfect, before you allow yourself to be happy, you'll spend your entire life waiting. Life will always have challenges, people will disappoint you, plans will fall apart, but the person who is rooted in their own inner world, who has decided, my state of mind is mine and mine alone, is unshakable. That's not to say they never experience negative emotions. They do, but those emotions are momentary waves, not permanent states. When you stop outsourcing happiness, you start noticing how much time you've wasted on emotional transactions. Think about how often people say things like, I'd be happy if they appreciated me, or I'd be happy if I got that promotion. This if mentality is a trap because it keeps you stuck in a life of conditional emotions. You're constantly waiting for the outside world to do its job before you feel good. But the truth is, you can feel good right now without any of those conditions being met. It's about deciding that your inner world is the priority, that it gets built and strengthened regardless of the weather outside. When you master this, other people's behavior stops having so much power over you. Someone doesn't text back. Fine, someone disrespects you, that's their problem, not your emotional prison. You stop living in reaction mode and you start living in creation mode. You are no longer the person who gets thrown around by every comment, every slight, every unmet expectation. You choose your emotional state like you choose your clothes in the morning, deliberately and with awareness. This requires an uncomfortable level of responsibility, because if your happiness is truly yours to create, then you can't blame anyone else when you don't feel it. You can't point the finger at your partner, your boss, your friends, or society. You have to admit that if you're not happy, it's because you haven't yet built the mental and emotional habits that produce it. That's a hard pill to swallow because it forces you to face the truth. You've been living on emotional autopilot. But the second you see that, you can take control. Building happiness from the inside means learning how to manage your thoughts like a skilled gatekeeper. You decide which thoughts get to enter and which get turned away. You become aware of the stories you tell yourself about life, about people, about yourself. If those stories are making you feel small, weak, or resentful, you replace them. You rewrite your internal script. This isn't toxic positivity, it's conscious choice. It's about recognizing that reality isn't just what happens to you, it's also the meaning you attach to it. Change the meaning and the emotional impact changes instantly. There's a discipline to happiness. It's in the small daily choices, refusing to dwell on an insult, finding gratitude in something ordinary, focusing on what's in your control instead of obsessing over what isn't. It's about catching yourself in the middle of a negative spiral and saying, no, I'm not going to feed this. That kind of control doesn't happen overnight. It happens through consistent practice, the same way you train a muscle. At first, your mind will want to snap back to its old habits, because negativity can be comfortable in a twisted way. It's familiar. But with enough repetition, choosing happiness becomes the default, and negativity becomes the intruder. When you stop expecting others to make you happy, your relationships change. You no longer need people to act a certain way to keep you okay. You stop trying to control them because you don't need them to play a role in your emotional script. You're free to love without possession, to connect without fear, to walk away without bitterness. You can enjoy people's presence, but their absence doesn't destroy you. This is where true freedom begins, and here's the paradox. The more you rely on yourself for happiness, the more attractive you become to others. People gravitate toward those who have their own light, their own energy. You stop coming across as needy or desperate because you're not looking for someone to fill your empty cup. You're already overflowing. This isn't arrogance, it's self-sufficiency. It's the quiet, unshakable confidence that says, I'm good with or without you. And that changes everything because you're no longer playing the game of emotional dependency. You reach a point where you understand that happiness is not an end goal, it's the foundation. It's the platform you operate from, not the prize you get at the end. This flips your whole life experience. Instead of thinking, I'll be happy when I achieve X, you operate from I'm happy now, so I'm capable of achieving X. That shift in energy is magnetic. It fuels action, it breeds resilience. Because when your inner state is stable, you can handle setbacks, criticism, and obstacles without collapsing. You might bend, but you won't break. Being alone is one of the most misunderstood states in human life. Society has trained people to believe that being alone is a problem that must be fixed, a sign that something is wrong with you, that you're missing something essential. From a young age, we are told that our worth is tied to our social circles, our relationships, our ability to be surrounded by others. Movies, songs, and social media glorify togetherness and romance while quietly planting the idea that solitude equals loneliness and loneliness equals failure. But this is a lie that keeps people emotionally dependent and mentally weak. The truth is that solitude is not just a neutral state. It is one of the most powerful positions you can put yourself in if you know how to use it. When you are alone, you are not being drained by constant chatter, endless demands, or the expectations of others. You are free from the noise, both external and internal, that comes from trying to keep up with everyone else's pace. This quiet is where clarity lives. It's in this space that your mind can slow down enough to ask the real questions. Who am I? What do I want? What am I doing with my life? Most people never truly answer these questions because they never stop distracting themselves with people, events, and constant stimulation. They fear that if they stop, they'll have to face themselves. But facing yourself is exactly where real transformation begins. Solitude is a forge. Just like metal is heated and hammered into shape, your character, focus, and inner strength are built in the moments when you are by yourself. When you're constantly around others, it's easy to lean on them for validation or to let their opinions guide your choices. But when you're alone, you're forced to take responsibility for your decisions. You learn to trust your own judgment. You start to hear your own voice clearly without it being drowned out by the noise of the crowd. This self-reliance is the foundation of confidence that can't be faked. There's a massive difference between loneliness and solitude, and it's all about perspective. Loneliness is when you believe you need someone to feel complete, and because that person isn't there, you feel empty. Solitude is when you recognize you are already complete, and you choose to be alone because you value your own company. In loneliness, you're starving for someone to fill a void. In solitude, you're feeding yourself with focus, self-discovery, and growth. The person who can be at peace in their own presence holds an advantage over the person who constantly needs a crowd to feel okay. When you spend time alone intentionally, you also learn how to direct your energy. You can focus deeply on your goals without being interrupted or influenced by others. This is why so many great thinkers, leaders, and creators have embraced periods of isolation. They understand that to build something exceptional, you need stretches of uninterrupted time to think, plan, and execute. Solitude is where strategies are born, where visions are sharpened, where skills are mastered. You don't have to cut people out of your life forever, but you do have to be willing to step away long enough to build something worth sharing with the world. There's also a raw strength that comes from knowing you can handle life alone if you have to. It doesn't mean you want to live without anyone forever, but it means you're not dependent. If a friendship ends, if a relationship falls apart, if people walk away, you don't collapse. You stand, you adapt, you continue. That resilience makes you untouchable because no one can threaten you with abandonment. You know that being alone is not a punishment, it's just a change of environment, and you can thrive in it. Most people avoid solitude because it forces them to confront their thoughts. In the presence of others, it's easy to hide behind laughter, conversations, or distractions. But when you're alone, the truth rises to the surface. Your fears, your insecurities, your regrets, they all show up. And instead of running from them, you have to deal with them. This confrontation is uncomfortable, but it's also liberating. Once you face what you've been avoiding, it loses its power over you. You become lighter, sharper, and more focused. Choosing solitude also allows you to control your inputs. When you're around others all the time, you're constantly absorbing their moods, their beliefs, their problems. Whether you realize it or not, you're influenced by the people you spend the most time with. Alone time lets you reset. It gives you the chance to cut off the mental pollution and choose what you consume: books, ideas, knowledge, or simply silence. This control over what enters your mind directly impacts the quality of your thoughts and, in turn, the quality of your life. In solitude, you learn how to enjoy your own company, which is one of the most underrated skills in life. You can take yourself out, engage in activities you love, invest in your personal development, and feel fulfilled without needing anyone to be there. The irony is that when you genuinely enjoy your own company, you become far more magnetic to others. People are drawn to those who are comfortable in their own skin, who aren't needy, who radiate self-sufficiency. This is the kind of energy that commands respect, not because you demand it, but because you embody it. When you are comfortable being alone, you also stop settling for low-quality relationships just to avoid isolation. You no longer tolerate toxic friends, draining partners, or shallow connections, because you'd rather have peace alone than chaos with someone else. This automatically raises the standards for the kind of people you allow in your life. And when you do connect with someone, it's from a place of strength, not desperation. You're not looking for someone to complete you, you're looking for someone who complements the life you've already built. Your mind is the most powerful tool you own, and it can either be your greatest ally or your most dangerous enemy. Every thought you entertain shapes how you feel, what you believe, and ultimately the life you create. Yet most people drift through their days with no awareness of the mental patterns controlling them. They think they're making conscious choices, but in reality, they're operating on mental autopilot, replaying the same old thoughts over and over. These thoughts are like invisible programs running in the background, shaping every emotion, every reaction, and every decision without you even realizing it. If you don't take control of these programs, they will take control of you. Negative feelings are rarely born out of the moment you're in right now. They're usually the product of deeply ingrained thought patterns you've been carrying for years. Somewhere along the way, you learn to interpret certain situations in ways that trigger fear, anger, sadness, or self-doubt. And because you've repeated those interpretations so many times, they've become automatic. Your mind has learned to respond with negativity out of habit. The problem is that habits feel normal, so you assume they're reality. But the truth is, they're just stories you've been telling yourself for so long that they've hardened into beliefs. Mastering your mind starts with becoming aware of those stories. You have to catch yourself in the act of thinking the same destructive thoughts you've always thought. You have to listen to your own inner dialogue like an outsider. What do you say to yourself when you wake up in the morning? What do you say to yourself when you fail, when someone criticizes you, when you face uncertainty? If your inner voice is always telling you you're not good enough, that things never work out, or that you don't have what it takes, you have to understand those aren't facts. They're just mental scripts you've been running, and you have the power to rewrite them. Rewiring your mind is like training a muscle. At first, it feels awkward and forced. You might try to think more positively, but your mind will resist. It will pull you back toward the old familiar patterns because that's where it feels comfortable. But the more you consciously replace negative thoughts with empowering ones, the easier it becomes. You start to build mental strength. You start to notice when negativity tries to sneak in, and instead of letting it spiral into full-blown emotion, you cut it off at the root. This is where true mastery begins, when you can intercept your thoughts before they pull you down. One of the most powerful ways to master your mind is to control your focus. Your mind will always find evidence for whatever you choose to look for. If you focus on problems, you'll see more problems. If you focus on possibilities, you'll see opportunities that were invisible before. This isn't some mystical law, it's the way your brain's reticular activating system works. It filters information based on what it thinks is important to you. Change your focus and you literally change the information your brain highlights for you every day. This means you have the ability to program your brain to work for you instead of against you. Negative feelings are not a sign that you're weak, they're signals. They're telling you there's a belief, a fear, or a perspective that needs to be challenged. Instead of drowning in them, you can use them as a starting point for growth. Ask yourself, why am I feeling this way? What am I thinking that's creating this emotion? Is this thought actually true, or is it just an assumption I've accepted? Most of the time, you'll realize the feeling isn't coming from the situation itself. It's coming from the meaning you've attached to it. Change the meaning, and the feeling changes with it. You also have to understand that your mind responds to repetition. If you've been telling yourself the same negative story for years, you can't expect it to vanish after saying one positive thing. You have to feed your mind with empowering thoughts every single day until they become your new normal. This could mean reading, listening to, and surrounding yourself with ideas that lift you higher. It means eliminating constant exposure to negativity, whether that's in the media you consume or the people you spend time with. If you wouldn't feed your body poison, why feed your mind with toxic information? Self-talk is a weapon. The words you use with yourself are programming commands for your subconscious mind. When you say, "I can't handle this," your mind takes that as truth and shuts down your creativity and resilience. When you say, "I will figure this out," your mind starts looking for solutions. Over time, your inner voice can either become a drill sergeant pushing you toward your goals or a saboteur dragging you back into mediocrity. You get to choose which one it is. Discipline is the bridge between knowing and doing. You can understand all of this on an intellectual level and still fall victim to your old thought patterns if you don't practice it daily. Mastering your mind is about consistent, deliberate effort. It's about noticing when your thoughts start drifting toward fear, scarcity, or doubt, and deliberately steering them back toward possibility, abundance, and action. At first, it will feel like you're constantly pulling yourself back on track, but eventually it becomes automatic. Your mind starts to default toward empowerment instead of despair. When you control your mind, you control your life. You no longer react blindly to situations, you respond with intention. You stop being a prisoner to moods, impulses, and external triggers. Instead of being dragged by the chaos of life, you become the one steering. This doesn't mean you'll never have bad days or difficult emotions. It means you'll have the mental tools to deal with them without letting them dictate your actions or your destiny. And that shift changes everything, because when your mind is your ally, there is nothing in the external world that can truly defeat you. Most people spend their entire lives trying to avoid pain as if it's the enemy. They run from discomfort, hide from challenges, and numb themselves when life gets hard. But pain is not the enemy. It's the rawest, purest form of energy you'll ever have. The problem is that most people don't know how to use it. They let pain paralyze them instead of fuel them. They get stuck in the feeling instead of asking, how can I turn this into power? Every great comeback story, every transformation, every moment of breakthrough starts with a moment of pain that was redirected into something greater. When you're hurting, your mind is in overdrive, your emotions are heightened, your awareness is sharp, and you feel everything with intensity. That intensity is fuel. If you sit with it long enough to understand it, you can convert it into unstoppable momentum. But here's where most people go wrong. They either suppress the pain, pretending it doesn't exist, or they wallow in it, replaying the same story until it becomes their identity. Neither one will change your life. What will change your life is taking that emotion and channeling it into action so powerful that the very thing that once hurt you becomes the reason you rise higher than ever before. Think of pain as resistance training for your soul. Just as your muscles grow stronger when you push against weight, your spirit and your mind grow stronger when you push against struggle. Every time you feel pain and choose to use it instead of running from it, you're building resilience. You're teaching yourself that no matter how bad it gets, you can keep moving forward. And that's a skill most people will never have because they've been conditioned to see pain as something that needs to be escaped instead of something that needs to be harnessed. The reality is pain will visit everyone, you can't avoid it. You'll face loss, betrayal, rejection, failure. These are inevitable parts of life. The difference between those who stay broken and those who rise is what they do with the pain when it comes. The ones who stay stuck focus only on the wound. They keep opening it, showing it to others, using it as proof that the world is unfair. The ones who rise take that same wound and use it as a reminder of why they need to get stronger, why they need to become more disciplined, why they need to level up so nothing and no one can break them like that again. Channeling pain into fuel requires brutal honesty. You have to admit what hurt you, why it hurt you, and what you're going to do about it. You can't sugarcoat it. If you were betrayed, acknowledge it. If you failed, own it. If you made a mistake, face it. That honesty is the starting point for transformation. Once you stop lying to yourself about your pain, you can take full control over what happens next. The moment you take ownership, you stop being a victim of what happened and start being the architect of what will happen. Some of the greatest sources of power in your life will come from the very moments you thought would break you. Think about the person who got cheated on, and use that heartbreak to focus on building their career and their body until they became the most confident version of themselves. Think about the person who was broke and humiliated, who used that shame as fire to grind every single day until they never had to worry about money again. Pain has a way of lighting a fire that comfort never can. Comfort makes you lazy, soft, and stagnant. Pain forces you to evolve or get crushed. When you feel negative emotions like anger, sadness, or frustration, you have two choices: let them consume you or let them drive you. Anger, for example, can be destructive if you let it explode uncontrollably. But if you focus it, it becomes a force that pushes you to work harder, to prove yourself, to refuse to settle. Sadness can make you feel like withdrawing from the world, but if you redirect it, it can push you to create something meaningful, to connect with others on a deeper level, to find purpose that outlives the pain. Every negative emotion has a positive potential if you decide to find it. The key is movement. Pain that sits still turns into suffering. Pain that moves turns into growth. This is why action is non-negotiable. You can't just think about using your pain, you have to put it into motion. That means getting up earlier, training harder, studying more, creating, building, pushing yourself past limits you thought were impossible. Every rep, every page, every step becomes a way of telling yourself, I will not waste this pain. And the more you move, the less space there is for self. self-pity. It's also important to understand that turning pain into fuel doesn't mean you become cold or emotionless. It means you learn how to feel everything without letting it break you. You let yourself grieve, but you don't let grief chain you to the past. You let yourself feel the anger, but you use it to push through the workout, through the study session, through the late nights building your dream. You let yourself feel the fear, but you use it as a signal to prepare harder and sharpen your skills. Pain becomes a message, and the message is always the same: grow from this. When you start viewing pain as energy, you stop dreading it. You stop seeing it as the thing that ruins your life and start seeing it as the thing that builds your life. This shift in perspective is powerful because it means nothing can truly defeat you unless you let it. If someone hurts you, you use that hurt to improve yourself. If life knocks you down, you use that moment to train your resilience. Instead of asking, "Why did this happen to me?" you start asking, "How can I use this to become better?" That single change in the way you respond to pain can transform every hardship you face into a stepping stone toward the life you want.